Hello everyone. Alright, let's focus on what we got today. Today is the 18th of the month. We got our core producer price index month over month. We got pretty much higher results than expected, which in essence what drives the sentiment right now in the market, as you can see, which we're going to go over in about a couple of seconds. So basically the expectation was to hit a 0.8, well the previous story was 0.8%, and technically although the actual is lower, but forecast was expected to be even lower, and so subsequently the market is overreacting as we see. This is the core PPI. If we're looking at PPI month over month, we see that the previous was 0.5, the forecast for the current one was 0.3, and instead we got 0.7, which of course does affect the market reaction. At the end of the day, the producer price index, what it implies is whether the various retailers, the various companies, the various stores, shops have to pay more for the finalized product, basically, which affects inflation directly, is being transferred to us, the consumer. So guess what? We will feel that PPI going higher. So first of all, real quick, do not forget when you are on my channel to ring the notification bell. Do not forget to subscribe and like, otherwise you'll not be in the know. Definitely join the community. It is $70 a month to be completely informed, to have community meetings and all sorts of fun stuff. Real quick, let's get into the charts. So what are we seeing? Here is the overreaction, and something I've been talking about in my community with my members. They were quite aware and very well aware of what's going on and how the price action is sort of showing where we're going, where we're headed in the upcoming days and weeks. So currently 1 hour time frame is looking a little bit bearish given the reaction to the PPI, which is not all that surprising. It feels like we're going to reside on that median of that channel. Basically, we can see almost this area of potential confluence. We're potentially going to drop into that little valley right there, residing on what seems to be 6,670. Then if we look at the 4 hours, we still are bearish. That's why that sort of confirmation for the 1 hourly not to just drop as low as this support, but actually sort of pitter patter and end up sort of moving downwards, falling into this valley at 6,669, potentially even slipping to 6,666, given the vicinity and the psychological sort of aspect of that layer. The 4 hour definitely confirms still having some bearish momentum in the system, but that is the sort of the trickery here that's going on. In reality, something that I've highlighted to my community quite a bit and shown what is going on. If you look at the left side of this head and shoulders overall formation, basically we're expecting to see something somewhat similar occurring within that vicinity. In fact, arguably that price action that we're seeing right there. So technically speaking, at least it appears to be, if that is the case, almost comparable lows, and what we are seeing now right here is already part of that formation that we will see the equal of on the left side. Really, it's us progressing from being in that higher layer to that lower layer and kind of experiencing entanglement, retests of these support resistance levels. In fact, if we really want to be objective about it, we really are talking about 6,500, although you see slippage to it that does occur a couple of times, but more often than not we stayed and remained within the confines of the channel. As this channel will flatten out, the lower we will go in the near term days, we will inevitably force this channel to flatten out and become a little bit even more sideways, not like it is right now, sort of shallow to upside right, but instead it will become almost akin to something like this. Again, if I could only draw straight, with our ceiling being at around 6,900 ish, and the rest of the lows being again 6,500 ish and above that handle sort of. But the trickery here is that the weekly is having confluence, and that's where we're sort of, we can assess that we're going to have some entanglement within that vicinity. You don't have to confine it the same way I do. I'm just giving it a sort of rough general guideline. But the trick here is that the monthly is still very bearish, and in fact accelerating, becoming even more bearish. And here, once we are done with the retests, which is again a very normal phenomena of these levels, in fact potentially slipping lower to that 6,500. Of course, this may take some time. I'm not saying it's going to last for months on end. In fact, as we know, we do tend to break down sort of, the price action and the market crash tends to be far quicker than the upside. The left side of things is a little bit slower. It takes people time to get convinced, to gain that conviction to why participate in one or another asset or sector or so on. And we're kind of experiencing the back end of it, but the back end may end up playing out a lot faster, a lot quicker, basically. So what we're saying here is that we still are seeing, although the price action is now reacting in a very negative way, we still are expecting a potential closure of the gap. What gap am I talking about? In fact, I've kind of highlighted just the other day how I was expecting that sort of movement to play out. Here it is. This is kind of what this was meant to represent. Again, we're not trying to time the market, but rather understand what is expected from the market to play out. As you can see, we have another larger impulse sort of following, or at least expectation of, roughly going into these very same layers, which will in essence end up closing the gap that resides at $6,774. As you can see right there, this blue line represents where that gap ends. So basically, given how the price action doesn't just tend to climb up and break down, we still are expecting to see somewhat of a corrective motion. But is that a given? Is that a certainty? No. I've said this before. Gaps are just a side effect. They're more of a tertiary ripple effect phenomena kind of thing. And if the momentum and the cyclicality, meaning the sort of the rhythm of the cycle that imposes the so itself, or rather what is meant to happen in the price action, far stronger than just the gaps themselves, guess what? That means that the price action will fall down, and these gaps will be then subsequently filled in when the price action will be going to the upside on the sort of next front end, when we will be crossing to the upside, once already finished with the lows, which were far off. It's hilarious how we are just like, we saw a little bit of a correction, a little bit of a breakdown, a little bit of a correction on top of that breakdown, and then the various so-called YouTuber bubbleheads. It is, I'm horrified. I'm horrified that some people actually take these other people seriously, those who are just rely on utter gut feelings and biased opinions that are set based upon already preset positions, and no any actual professional expertise, or not even a single day working in the industry at any position, not even a janitor. Why is it that people really buy into this bullshit that you can find on YouTube? Guys, the market is a very precise science. It has a lot of guidelines and tools and rules, and like any other very serious mathematically involved profession, I just do not understand for the life of me how people can take anyone who just literally, oh, the market's gonna go up because I have a position, it makes sense to me, in the market to the moon. I mean, I'm not even gonna sort of repeat some of the bullshit I've heard throughout the last couple of months back and forth, while the market is obviously showing signs of breakdown. And I was warning about all these things, about how these processes are not going to be clear to the uninitiated, to the people who do not understand what it is that they're looking at. And notice, these same people who are now telling you, don't worry, to the moon, these very same people who told you just like a couple of weeks ago how we're not going sideways, in reality it's just an uptrend, and don't worry, everything will be fine, and this is not going to happen. But it did. Something I've been warning about, again, and my community is well aware. In fact, we make fun of people. In my community, people who make fun of technical analysis, we call them flat earthers. That's what you are, literally. People who make fun of a science they don't know. They are the equal of a flat earthers. Your ignorance, sort of the person who's bragging about not knowing about technical analysis, do you realize how we perceive you? Bragging about ignorance. So instead of being that ignorant person, take yourself seriously, invest in yourself, learn and understand this market language, so you'll not be caught by surprise by this roller coaster that's going to at least take a couple more weeks at least, it seems like imagine if we spent this long in that very same vicinity. And yes, the back end, basically the right side of things, does tend to be a lot shorter in terms of time spent. And if we spent 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 even 12, and some would argue even 13 weeks within that range, it doesn't mean we're going to spend 13 weeks on the right side of things, on the back end of the wave. We do tend to break down, and we've seen this throughout history, how the market tends to crash a lot faster than it tends to rally. That's just the reality. That's it, boys and girls. That's all I had for you today. Do not get overexcited by this movement. We still are expecting, in fact, as you can see, the market is already starting to correct. Again, these sort of news, and unfortunately, I wouldn't even take the reports, the numbers we're getting right now all too seriously because of the government shutdown. I just wouldn't trust these numbers whatsoever, and arguably inflation is through the roof in the hundreds of percents, and we're just utterly foolish to even believe anything remotely that's being reported, whether through PPI or CPI itself. Doesn't matter. It's all bullshit. Utter bullshit. Notice what the prices are like at the store. That's all I can tell you. That's it, boys and girls. Before I have another missile alarm or something crazy like that, I'm gonna go. You all have a wonderful day. Definitely join the community. It is only $70, and which is, by the way, still discounted. This is still a discounted price. Next month, at the end of the month, this will be $90. This will be hiked, as this is $99, pardon me, basically $100. We're going to be sort of reaching the final price. Join in right now, which will give you access to my Discord, where we hang out on a daily basis, discuss various assets, if it's the major indices, the overall market. My members get various videos, get, of course, informed ahead of everyone else through various charts that I keep informing them, and giving them my analysis ahead of time and whatnot. Of course, as you can see, again, that very same sort of premise I was showing my members. I just was talking about this a while before I exposed this to the public. My members do get sort of the info first, right? As you can see, this was posted, for example, literally the beginning, on the 11th, for example, right? This was posted even earlier, and as you're going to continue going, sort of my members, again, are very well aware. In fact, they were very well aware of this before we even started reaching the sort of the bottoms and so on and so on. So quite well aware, as you can see. My members are always in the know. Definitely join in while the prices are still discounted. I have only 2 empty spots in my one-on-one academy, in which I meet up with you, and teach you how to do technical analysis, like so. Here we join in, then I share my screen, and all that sort of beautiful stuff. I teach you one-on-one how to do the very same thing I'm doing, and so not to be dependent on myself, and more so then we can actually compare, and you can see, in fact, as you can see here, I was implying that that's going to happen far ahead of time, far before anyone else was talking about. As you can see, we can keep on scrolling. This is just one example. Here earlier I was showing the very same idea. I was just showing it via these yellow boxes. So as you can see, that was literally at the beginning of the month, on the 6th of the month. And more so, in fact, that whole correction downwards was implied, and so on and so on and so on. You can see. The further we go, you still can find notifications. By the way, here you can see on the 5th of the month, when we were still very far from that 666 area, which we're now testing, I was already telling and warning my members how we're going to get there, right? That was far ahead of us actually testing these levels. You can see back in these sessions, we still were far away, and that didn't make any sense. Most people thought we're just going to curve back up, given their biases. That's it, ladies and gents. You all have a wonderful day. I will see you in the community. I will see you on the next video, and definitely join in, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the notification bell. I have some really crazy information and really crazy videos coming up this week, so you definitely don't want to miss out. See you on the next one. Bye bye.